You do the big intro. And I
Okay.
think she deserves a big intro right now because times are tough.
Times are tough. And you know what? Even though this is a topic that I think a lot of us would rather avoid right now, it's one we got to look dead in the face. We are talking about finances with good friend of the show, Canada's money coach, Judith Cane.
Yay,
Woo! Wow.
Yay.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, you guys. It's always so much fun to hang out with you guys and have a little cocktail. And although I'm pretending I'm drinking tea,
What is it?
I'm not.
It's wine.
It's tea.
You can't fool us. We taught you that trick, I'm pretty sure.
It might be a specialty.
Judith, you're in New Brunswick right now, right?
Yes, I'm in Sackville, New Brunswick, which I like to tell everybody is the real Sackville.
The real Sackville.
Yes.
I love this. One silver lining to this whole pandemic is how we get to talk to people all over the place. Like Jenna's still in Vancouver. I'm in Ottawa. I'll always be in Ottawa. And you're in New Brunswick.
I am. We've got the country covered.
I guess so.
Yes,
Yeah.
We really do.
We can't cross the border to each other, but we can still see each other.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump right in because I've seen a lot of people giving financial advice on TV, and a lot of it is you shouldn't pay attention to. So I saw something very shocking this morning, and I turned the TV off because I knew we were going to talk to you, and I thought I'm going to save this question for Judith. There was a financial expert on some news program, and they say the most important thing you can do at a time like this is create a wartime budget. Wartime budget. That's the term they used, and I thought that's terrifying. What does that mean?
Well, that means cutting your expenses to the bone. So that I know people are going to, Netflix is probably going to come and shut me off, but that's cutting out streaming, if you're that desperate, if it is that critical, your money situation, then that's what you have to do. You have to cut cable, you have to cut, you have to cut your streaming, you have to cut. Now, some of the suggestions I have is if you have a neighbor or if you have a friend who's got Netflix, split it. Get the one where you can each have it. Two people can get on and split it, because all of a sudden it becomes a lot more affordable to do something like that. If you have internet, maybe what you do is one of you cancels your neighbor. This is what my son did. His neighbor, probably not supposed to do this, but I won't tell you who they were with. But anyway, the neighbor canceled their internet and they shared the internet. So when it becomes really difficult, then that's what you have to do. Grocery shopping is another area that you can save a lot of money. You have to pare down your costs on everything, and that means meal planning. The more that you can meal plan, the more money that you will save when you're grocery shopping. I know that these aren't fun things to talk about, but it's what needs to happen right now, and that's exactly what they did in wartime. I mean, they lived on ration. They didn't even have money. They used rations. They got ration books. So you were given a ration for meat. You were given a ration. There were no eggs or dairy, very little of it. You were given a ration for grains, flour, oats, those kinds of things. And that's when you went to the store that you turned it in and you got what they gave you.
Wow.
Now, I think when you think about it, that seems obvious. Cut on all the things that you enjoy in life, save. But what I think people are going to have a hard time understanding is, when are you in that critical situation? Because no one, at least younger, like our age, has ever been through a depression. Yes. So I don't think we recognize when we are in a critical state financially, because we get a lot of assistance from the government right now. That, of course, can't go on forever. But what would you think classifies as someone being in a situation where they should start clamping down big time?
If you have no income coming in, I did a Zoom call yesterday for someone who has a business, a small business, and sadly she had to lay off all of her employees. I think there was probably 10 on the call, and all of them lost their jobs. Oh. They all had to go on. Now they're going on to the curb thing. And that's what had to happen. And so it was like, what the heck do I do? Thankfully, it's the beginning of the month. And so when the curb money comes in, that's what we did. We went through, okay, so the curb money comes in, which is $2,000, unless you're on EI, and then it comes in at $500 a week. So it depends which category you're in. So if you applied for EI after March, I think 15th or 18th or something, then they automatically knock you up to curb and you get $500 a week. So you're still in the EI system. It's just a different category. But if you applied for it, you get the $2,000 at once. Now, the problem with a lot of people is they'll get the $2,000 and they'll think, oh my God, I have to pay off all my debt. I have to pay all my bills. Well, you can't do that because you don't know when the next money is going to come in. They say that this is going to last for 4 months, that they're going to, provide this for 4 months. But what I would do is I would say, this is the income I have coming in, which is $2,000. Now, out of that's got to come rent. And after rent, everything else is variable. So cut your groceries back to $150 a month or $200 a month and make a big lasagna, make it last, we're all going to be huge by the time this is over because we're all carbing out, but that's cheap food. I mean, I think the really interesting thing is for people who were supposedly middle class and who have now lost their jobs and are living on $2,000 a month, they're understanding what it's like to be on a very low income, and all of a sudden understand why can't those people just get healthy? Well, because they don't have access to, really good food and healthy vegetables. And on $2,000, if your rent is $1,000, if you live in Toronto or Vancouver or even Ottawa, and your rent is really high, the first thing you do is pay your rent, $1,000. Okay, out of that's got to come your car loan, your cell phone, your anything else that's got to come out of that.
Do you suggest that people that do live almost paycheck to paycheck defer some of their payments? For example, when I lost my job right away, once again, Judith, I immediately called my bank and deferred my loan payment and then deferred my car payment. Right. Do you suggest people do that?
Well, there is some discussion about what that's going to do to your credit score, because if you don't make the payment, even though you've been deferred, have the banks, have the credit card companies, have the loan companies set it up so that if the payment doesn't go through, it doesn't automatically trigger a note to TransUnion or to Equifax saying this person missed their payment. Even though you made an agreement to defer the payment, what does that do to your credit score? And they're still trying to figure that out. If you defer your mortgage, for example, it can be very expensive to do that because they're taking the interest that you would have paid over those 6 months that you're deferring your mortgage or however long you're deferring your mortgage, and they're adding it on. So you're actually going to pay more because you're paying interest on the interest that you deferred. And some of the credit card companies are reducing, they're not deferring payments, but they're reducing the interest. So if you have a card that's at 19.99%, some of them are going as low as 10.99%. If you talk to your bank, some of them will defer a payment, but you have to pay that back. And some of them are saying, but you have to pay it back when you start paying again. So they're just going to add it into your next couple of payments. So your next couple of payments will actually be higher.
I think that's an important thing to point out, though, because banks, landlords, mortgage companies, they are all trying to figure this out the way we all are. So we don't know what is on the other side. In That's Ontario, right. There's a lot of people talking about not having to pay rent and your landlord can't evict you, but you're still going to owe that rent.
Yes.
It's just going to be backed up. So it's actually not a good idea, I don't think, to try to avoid paying if you can.
Right. And I think we have to remember that landlords, not all landlords are giant corporations. Some landlords are like us and just have a second house as a property and they're renting it out and have a mortgage on it. So, if they have to defer their mortgage because you can't pay your rent, then that's going to cost them money and that's just going to flow down to you. That's all.
What questions, if someone is in financial troubles and can't make their payments and does have to go to the extent of talking to their bank and trying to figure out a plan, what questions should they be asking their bank?
Well, before they get to their bank, the first thing they just do is see if they can afford to pay their payment. Excuse me for a second.
Uh-oh.
I know. Oh, my throat is sore. Oh, wait, too early? Anyway. So first thing you need to do is figure out if you can actually afford to pay your bills. So if your car loan is $300 a month or $400 a month, and you've got your COVID coming in and you've paid your curb your curb payment coming in and you've got your rent taken care of, if you can pay your car loan, pay your car loan. If you can pay the minimum payment on your debt, down in tiny little print at your credit card statement, it'll tell you what your minimum payment is. And if you can pay that minimum payment, and depending on what the balance is, if it's $10 or $15 or $30, it's better to pay that and just keep going, because essentially all you're doing is paying the interest, which is fine. But it won't change your credit score, and it won't leave you beholden to your financial institution. So the first thing I would do is to see if you can actually pay it. And then if you absolutely can't, I would look at savings and see if you can pull it out of your savings. Sadly enough, that's what an emergency fund is for. If you've accumulated, a few $100s into an emergency fund, that's what an emergency fund is for.
Right.
I don't think they specifically said COVID-19 is an emergency, but that's really what the emergency fund is for. So if you have some money saved up in your TFSA, it's likely not earning much money, or in a savings account or something. I would look at that as using that before you go to your lenders, because it's just going to cost you more money. And if your interest rate is
RSPs,
that's kind of a last ditch effort. Yeah. I'm hearing things like BC is flattening a bit. And so if you can hold out at least until the end of April to kind of see, I know it's all doom and gloom right now, but if we all do our best at staying away, I don't like stay at home. I hate that expression, because I have a dog I need to walk, so I can't stay at home. But if you can stay away from everybody, I think that, in the next couple of weeks, that's the critical time. So yes, it's going to be difficult probably for the next 6 to 8 months. But if you can make it through these first 2 months, I think it won't be as bad as people think it is, as long as they continue to give this $2,000 a month. Now, the problem lies with people who are self-employed and maybe are making $500 versus $4,000 they were making. So they don't qualify for any kind of, of the supplement. So that's the discussion right now. Do they just shut their business right down and start taking the curb money?
Scary times. I have a question about RSP specifically, since Jenna brought that up. I have a RSP that's part of I guess you'd call it a portfolio. Goes to show how much I understand this crap. But I'm involved. It was when we were working and some expert split it up for me and made a little fancy portfolio. But now when I'm watching it, it's going down, 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 down. So I called my bank freaking out, should I take this out and put it under my mattress? And they laughed at me and they were like, no. And they tried to explain how stocks work. And I just went cross-eyed. But it's really scaring me to watch it decrease that quickly. And I'm really wondering, should I cash it out?
It's actually gone back up a little bit.
Oh, good. I haven't checked. I've been avoiding it.
Don't see. That's the thing. I think when everybody heard that the market was going down, the first thing they did was look. And I like to tell people, don't peek. No peeking. Think of it as Christmas. Think of it as
weighing yourself. You shouldn't weigh yourself every day.
Exactly. I don't even own a scale anymore. I finally gave up on that. And it's the same thing. Do not check, because this will come back. It's the market's reaction to, oh my God, we have this virus going around the world. But now things are happening. I mean, for one thing, look at all the manufacturing that's happening, right? All the masks, and the government's paying for these. It's not like people are donating this. So there, 30,000 ventilators in Canada are being made, hundreds of thousands of masks. There's manufacturing. There are jobs at the grocery store. There are jobs at the drugstores, because they are essential services and they're open. So, people, if they want to work, can actually probably work if they are, healthy. And so the market is just reacting to that. And you'll see it started to come up again. And it depends on how diversified your portfolio is. I've heard of, the market went down about 23%. I think that was at its lowest. But, if you've got a diversified portfolio, it might have gone down 7% or 8%. So hold. Just don't open the envelope. That's what I tell people. Don't open the envelope. Don't peek. Don't look don't look behind the curtain. Don't peek.
The way the
Give
bank
it some
explained
time.
it, yeah, give it time. That's what the bank said to me. Give it time, and they explained it like each. Oh God, here I go. I'm trying to summarize it so anyone listening that's an idiot like me will understand. But they explained how each share, I guess, is like a thing, and the thing can grow or shrink, but you still own just as many eggs.
Yes.
Just some they might be big eggs, and other months they might be small eggs.
Really, did they
But
use
no
that
one's taking your egg.
analogy?
No,
Did they use
no,
that
I did right now.
analogy? Okay.
But
So
is
look
that
at it
sort
this
of?
way. I'll explain it to you like this. If you have a share in a bank stock, okay, there's two things that happens with that share. One is the value, the actual value of the share goes up and down, right? So it might be worth $50, it might be worth $70, it might be worth $90. So if you want to go buy a share in a company, that's how much it's worth. And traditionally, banks in Canada are very safe investments because they're like slow and plodding, like the tortoise. They're winning the race, where something's more risky goes like this. So if you want something that's fairly safe, bank stocks are usually pretty safe. And right now they went down, but they're starting to come back up again. Here's the other thing about bank stocks, just using them as an example. So please don't send letters and hate mail. They also produce a dividend, which means that when they do well, when they earn money every quarter, they actually pay their shareholders. So if you have a share in the bank, not only is the value of your share going up, but they're actually paying you. You're participating in the income of the bank. So two things are happening. One is the value is going up, and the other one is you're earning money because you own shares in the bank. So that's probably what they meant about, what's happening. And even in 2008, when we had that huge crash, they were still issuing dividends. So just hold, don't look at something else, like how nice it is outside today. Well, it's now cloudy, but the fact that it's getting warmer, the fact that BC is flattening
We're
a bit.
flattening over here, baby.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's good advice because part of what makes people check repeatedly is because we're so scared and worried. So if we can just trust that it's going to fluctuate, but it'll come back, then it makes you not want to check so much.
You know what makes sourdough bread? Apparently that's a thing. Everybody seems to be making sourdough bread.
There's those carbs again.
Exactly.
Now that there are people there that are fortunate enough to still have their job and their regular income coming in, do you have any advice for them on maybe they should be saving or should they be investing in certain things right now? Because I always find with any depression or crash, there's always room or an opportunity to make money if you have it.
Well, funny you should say that because I was just working with a client yesterday and she said, I have all this money in my bank account and I have no idea why. And I said to her, she's, you know what? She is a chef in a retirement home. So I bow to her.
Yeah.
She's a cook in a retirement home taking care of all these people that are at risk. Anyway, it's because she's not going anywhere. Right? She's using less gas. She's not going out spending money on entertainment. She's not even buying as many groceries. She said for some reason her grocery bill is down. She's not spending money on our alcohol budget's the same, but aren't all of ours.
Yeah.
But she's not spending money on clothes or travel or anything. She isn't spending money on any of that. So this is a really good opportunity for her to be able to pay down some of her debt. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's taking that extra money that she has and she's paying down her debt, which means that she'll be there a lot faster than when she was working on this, her regular budget that we had created for her. So we created a COVID budget for her and said, if you can save this much money, you can put it right down on your debt, which means she'll be out of debt by the end of the year, which was not possible.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was
my gosh, I'd be so happy.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting, so you're suggesting that people who are employed and not a lot has really changed for them to take that money, maybe readjust their budget and figure out how you can invest more in reducing your debt. Now, what if you are lucky and you're not in debt? What should you be doing with the money you save? Keeping it in savings or?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would talk to, I'd be putting it into savings. And if you are so inclined, talk to your investment advisor about maybe putting some money into your investments. whether it's market or mutual funds or ETFs or something. If you've got money, now is a good time because everything is on sale. That's what they say, that everything is on sale. But the other thing that you could do is you could support small businesses by buying gift certificates, or like we're not a takeout kind of people, but we are dining out people, but we're not dining out. Not that we have a lot of choice in the small town, but what we're doing is we are ordering takeout from these places so that they can at least survive until they can kind of open again. So that might be something is, if you're living within your budget and you had it budgeted to spend money anyway, then support local business. Forget ordering stuff on the big online stuff. But if you feel so inclined, consider supporting smaller business. But I would say that it's a good time to fill up your tax-free savings account, fill up your RSP, create that emergency fund that you always said that you were going to get around to do, save money for a trip. It's not like we're not going to be able to travel for the rest of our lives. So if you think that, maybe in a year you'd like to go away on the vacation that you weren't able to have, then now's the time. Or if your goal is to buy a house, then this is a good time to put money away to start saving money for that. If you had planned, so many people plan their weddings and know they're going to be in debt. For all those people who were going to get married this year and have now deferred it to 2021, well, this is a really good time to start putting, if you're making money and you don't have a lot of debt, this is a great time to put money away. To save money for your wedding and have it paid off instead of owing money when it's over.
It's like there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of darkness, but there's still a lot of opportunity for personal financial growth.
Absolutely. Pay off your car loans, right?
Yeah.
If you're not one of the lucky ones that has a 0% car loan, pay off your car loan. Like put the money towards your car loan, because who knows what's going to happen down the road. So the more you can free up from your cash flow, right? So if you can get your debts paid off, you can get your car paid off, you can get your student loans paid off, depending on what happens with this, then you would be in a better position from a cash flow. And when this is over and we are out, look at what your cash flow will be like. You won't have those big payments.
Right.
I want to go back to the food thing for a second, because I think we had Mandy Lunan on the show, who was, she's great and she's helping all the small food businesses. Part of the problem that really makes me feel for them is a lot of the time small local businesses charge a little bit more than my beloved Walmart. So at a crisis time where somebody doesn't have as much income, it's hard to justify paying the premium for the local products. I'm not saying you shouldn't. It just creates that, it makes it that much harder.
Right. And I understand that, especially for groceries. You want to support local, but you have to think of yourself first. That's what I always tell people, right? It's the old story of when you're in the plane and the people in the cabin tell you, they do the whole demonstration, the emergency demonstration, and when the oxygen comes down, what's the first thing they tell you?
Put your mask on before others.
Correct. So if you've got your kids beside you, you have to put your mask on, and then of course choose who you would like to put the next one on.
I never thought of that.
Parents at home right now who are like, I would not give oxygen to either of my children at this point.
No kidding. I would just take it all.
Oxygen means they can talk.
What I was saying about the not being able to afford local, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of people talking about how they're Uber Eatsing, they're ordering takeout pizza, expensive takeout foods that you could put that extra money towards supporting a local business. So think about that too. But I don't know if it's smart. All of a sudden everyone's ordering takeout because they think it's less germs or something. But I'm like, that's expensive.
It is expensive. That's why, we have a COVID budget, and we've worked in dining out or having takeout once a week. We ordered burgers, like the whole burger platter, except for me, I didn't have the fries. So good
for you. So
my son and his girlfriend, like it's going to help. But anyway, so my son and his girlfriend each had the full hamburger platter. I had without the fries. My husband had the platter. We ordered 2 shakes, I think, and we split them. And it came to like $75. So it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
But it was in our budget. We had budgeted for it. And that was just like a one-time thing because they're now in Halifax. But, I agree with you 100%. So maybe instead of every week, you do it every 2 weeks. But you know what? If everybody who can afford it bought once every 2 weeks from local, they would survive.
It's a good message. It's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you have these packaged food companies that I don't want to name names, that they have meals that are prepared. They're all cut up and prepared, and all you do is you order them and you have them delivered to your door. Well, don't forget that the people who deliver those are local, and the people, like, you're keeping people employed when you do something like that if you can afford it. So
Okay. Everything helps.
yeah, everything helps.
You keep talking about this COVID budget, and this is something new. This is something no one ever has had to plan a pandemic budget.
No.
So what advice do you have for people who do need to go back to the drawing board and how to create that budget? Like, how do you know what percentage of your budget should go to what?
Well, I think, I mean, for most people, they're already housed. So it's not like you can make a different choice on your housing. So you need to come up with what your fixed expenses are. And those are things that happen every single month and you can't change them. Now, I tell people that I would go back to your phone provider and, renegotiate a better package, because that's possible all the time. If you have a contract and it's coming up for renewal, do not buy a new phone right now. You don't need a new phone. The phone you have is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter if the glass is cracked. You've been using it with a cracked glass. Well, say that 5 times fast. You've been using it for that long, so why not continue to use it? You do not need a new phone right now. That's, this drives me crazy with these companies, because the first thing they do is tell you, well, for $0 down or $0, you can get this new phone. But then you have to lock into a very high priced contract, as opposed to a, I don't know, $25 or $45 package that's going to get you everything you need. It's just that you're not buying a phone.
Can I tell you something? Right before we did this, I missed a phone call from my provider she left a message, sweet woman, being like, we just want to check up on you during this difficult time and make sure everything's okay with your account. I'm like, bitch, I read right through you. You want to get me on a new phone. You're trying to upgrade me because I'm on my phone more than usual. And I was like, it's kind of smart of them, actually, but I'm not going to fall for it.
Yeah. Now, another one that I would suggest is all these people who have cable that have the extra channels so that they can get sports.
Cancel your sports.
Cancel your sports. Cancel it. You're not getting them. So why not just go to the basic package? And really, if you're stuck that much, you can stream just about every show. And plus, I don't know, is The Bachelor still on, or The Bachelorette, or all those things? I mean, they're still on. You can get them streaming. You can go online. You don't have to, as long as you have internet.
The Bachelor's old school now, Judith. It's all about Love is Blind. That's the new Bachelor.
Yeah, okay. Well, is that a Netflix thing?
It is a Netflix thing.
Okay.
I think Love is Blind is just foreshadowing. They knew that this was going to happen, so that's the new way to date. You can't meet each other face to face until you're deciding to, I don't know, get engaged.
Yeah.
Really?
And then you can move with each other for 2 weeks quarantine.
Yeah, in different rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my
Producer
God,
John just said, get an antenna. $15 for an antenna.
Exactly. So if you're cutting back, I mean, I've seen people who spend $150 on their cable packages, and honestly, there's no sports right now. So call right now and cancel that part of your cable.
Here's a little tip too that I just did actually. For a lot of renters, you have to pay extra for your parking spot.
Yes.
Well, during these hard times, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just give my landlord, send her an email and see if maybe she will waive that extra $100 a month fee for me to park my car, since one, my car's not even there.
Right.
And also, these are difficult times, and I'm sure that they'd rather waive $100 parking fee than have you not pay your rent. So That's what I did, and she said she agreed fully with it.
Well, because she wants you to stay. I mean, the worst that can happen with landlords is people start moving out because they can't afford their apartments anymore. And, that's a whole other wave of economic pressure is rental, people starting to move in together, people moving back with their parents, God forbid, but all that stuff. And so she doesn't want you to leave. So that's a great idea. Talk to your landlord about extra stuff like that.
Yeah. Remembering these are unprecedented times for everybody. No one knows how to handle this.
Now, most of the gyms have frozen memberships, but if they haven't, if your gym hasn't frozen your membership, call them up and say, hey, can I get a freeze until this has happened? Or any other kind of membership that you have, because you're not using the facilities, you're not using the membership. If you're a membership of a club, make sure that you're, if it comes up for renewal, just phone them and say, well, we're not even going to be able to meet or do, whatever it is. If you're a golfer or a curler or whatever it is, just tell them that you're going to put it off until we can actually get together and do this again.
You never know unless you ask.
That's right. The worst that can happen is that they say no. The best that can happen is that they say, yes, we understand, and we're going to do that.
You never know unless you ask. Jenna, that's not your line.
Oh, well, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
No, that's not it either.
You gotta risk it to get the biscuit?
Yeah! You gotta risk it to get the biscuit.
Exactly!
Now, Judith, we have been talking a lot of good advice, things we should cut out and stuff like that, but we wouldn't be the Messy Podcast if we didn't talk about the fun stuff too. So I think it's important to highlight that with all this extra time at home, a lot of us are bored. We can't cut everything fun out. We need to keep some of the streaming services. We got to keep some wine in the fridge.
Yes, I agree.
So how is there any advice for how to know, like, when you've tipped
too much, it's too much, right, Jesse?
Well, I hear boxed wine isn't bad.
It's not. We discovered one. I can't remember the brand. Oh, we won't say the brand, but I can't remember. But both Jenna and I were like, it's not bad.
Sawmill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what Bodelicious is? If you drink is it Bodelicious? Is that the one that's like $10?
Yeah, but it's high sugar. Woo! Don't check the sugar on that one.
Oh, honey, are we worried about that right now? I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
Well, I'm telling you, though, the more of the boxed wine you drink, the better it tastes. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, too. That's a great point. I think, the danger is some of the dangers are online shopping. People are still online shopping. I see the Amazon and FedEx and, UPS drivers driving around. So I know that people are ordering and unless it's really something that you need, I think that should not be recreation. That shouldn't be your entertainment. There is so much entertainment online right now. I know that we want to do fun stuff. I played Trivial Pursuit online with some friends on Saturday night. And this Saturday, in fact, it's from Ottawa. There's a gang in Ottawa who have created a bingo, an online bingo. So you pay your $10. Oh, I have to do that. And they're raising money for charity. I think the food banks, but you order your cards and they print them out. It's all computer generated. And then on Saturday night, he actually calls the number and you play and I think you actually win some numbers. So I'm not sure if I should be saying that out loud, but anyway, it's just a fun thing to do. Right.
Yeah.
And the Trivial Pursuit or the trivia kind of contest or whatever was quite fun. And there were a couple of prizes that people got. And so I think you have to look for it to figure out what your entertainment is going to be. There's so much online now that you can do. There, all the museums have tours through their museums. A lot of the Broadway shows you can watch live. You have to be careful because some of them are from the States and you don't have access to them, but there's still, other online streaming that shows you great Broadway tunes, and we're all going to come out singing wonderful Broadway tunes when this is all over. Exercise.
But it's important I wasn't saying stop, Judith. I was doing jazz hands. Sorry, I confused you. I was confused. But just to wrap that section up, then you're saying, you got to allow yourself some treats. So maybe, keep Netflix, but don't keep all the streaming services. You don't need Disney Plus, Crave, Amazon, blah, 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 blah.
Right, exactly. And look for the free stuff. There's quite a few that are 30 days of free. So that's what we've done. We've done 30 days of this and we just remember to cut it off. We've got it marked on our calendar to cut it off, like to stop the payment before it goes through. So we watch 30 days of this. We watch 30 days of that. We watch 30. There's so many streaming services that you can get now.
Have you tried Shudder, this horror one?
No, I'm not a horror person. Not a horror. I know it's hard to believe.
Not a horror. Make sure you pronounce that correctly.
I'm not a horror person. Yes, I'm not a horror lover.
Okay.
John could cut that, right?
Right. No, you know what? It sounds like we were talking to Leanne Lang about fitness and eating, and she was talking about how most eating in quarantine comes out of boredom. Well, it almost sounds like you are saying that a lot of spending, unnecessary spending, is going to come out of boredom too.
Yeah, and it's not like there isn't stuff to do, but honestly, if anybody was like me, the last couple of weeks, I felt overwhelmed and sad, and I cried, and I don't want to write King Lear like that. Seeing people say that, well, it's like Gwyneth Paltrow. You could learn a new language or play a new instrument. Well, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in it. I want to make sure that my mother's going to live through this. I want to make sure, there's a bit of panic when you don't have a big house and lots of people helping you out, and you don't have to worry about anything, because you can buy all your organic stuff and whatever it is that she does. But I think that I have a hard time seeing stuff like that. Like, look at my beautiful cookies that I made. What? No, I'm not. That just makes me feel even worse. That I don't want to do that.
Well, it's important to highlight that people handle this differently. And while some people maybe channel their stress into a productive activity, some of us like to just sit on the couch and suck on our boxed wine.
Yes, exactly. And
okay.
Wonder where I'm going to get the energy to talk to clients, or to, work on their plan, try and help them. I've got quite a few clients who are struggling because they're not working, and we're trying to figure out how we can make the $2,000 last for them and their spouse and their 2 kids. And I'm feeling the stress of that, trying to figure out how.
Right.
How do you tell someone, I know your kids are home, but you have to stop all of your streaming services?
Yeah. And by the way, they can't go to the park.
Yes. Oh, and you can't do that either. You can run around in your little, tiny backyard,
manual labor.
Yeah.
Get them to churn that butter.
Yes, exactly. Buy seeds instead of spices, so that they have to grind them. No, it's not ready yet. It has to be finer than that. Yeah.
I always said, if you want to keep your kids busy for about 20 minutes, put lube on their hands and tell them it's soap, and tell them to go rinse it off.
You are mean.
There's a way. There's some future therapy bills waiting to happen.
No kidding.
My mom used to squirt lube on my hands
and tell me to go wash it off.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm a horrible person, aren't I?
And
I don't think so.
Does not have children.
I don't think so. You know what? We do stuff, and yeah.
Yeah. While we are on the topic of children, when people are, let's say, on the CERB, do you have any advice for them? Because I think parents are feeling the stress from all sorts of angles right now. And, financially is one of the major causes of stress for them. So do you have any advice on how to, survive through, whether it's a temporary layoff or until our economy gets moving again?
Yeah, it's a double whammy, because not only do you have your kids with you and they're bored and you're bored, and now you have to figure out how you're going to feed your family of 4 or 5 or 6 on, a couple $1,000s, or maybe if each of you are getting it. I mean, it's still not very much money to live on. And so I would start with a budget. I know it's not very glamorous, but that's where I would start. I would start at the top and say, this is how much income we have coming in, and whatever expenses we have has to be less than that.
Right.
So you start with
it's a good time to talk to children about finances?
I think it's a great time to teach kids about finances. I think, the problem is trying to do it kind of in not a stress mode. So if you're stressed about money, maybe this isn't a good time, because what you're going to do is teach them bad money habits and bad money beliefs. So when they grow up, one of 2 things, they'll either be spenders or hoarders. So, but it is a really good time. I had a friend today who posted that she had taken all her Canadian Tire money and got her son to sort it out by denomination, which is perfect, because it's like 1 cent, 3 cents, 5 cents, 10. So it took him forever. And then she went online to Canadian Tire, because he wanted to see what he could buy with all this money, because it was a big pile of money. He wanted to see what he could buy with all of his money. And it was a good lesson for him to understand that even though you have a lot of money, you can't afford that bike. You can't even nearly afford that bike. You can't even afford the little card that flaps in the wheels when it goes around. Like you just can't afford, or the fringe that hangs off the handlebars. You just can't afford that. So it's a good time to teach kids about money. Take some of your groceries, some of your stuff out of your pantry and put it on the floor and give kids money, and they have to buy that. And you can teach them how much it costs to create a meal. So let's say a spaghetti dinner. So you've got the spaghetti sauce and the spaghetti and some Parmesan cheese and whatever else, or maybe you're making the spaghetti sauce, and show the kids that and say, this is what it costs to make that, and pull the money out and say, this is what it costs for the spaghetti. This is what it costs for the can of tomatoes. And it's a good time to teach kids about money. Play market.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Play market.
Great idea.
Yeah. Let them go shopping in the pantry.
Right. How do people get in touch with you if they want some financial advice? If they need help rebudgeting?
They can connect with me on my website, which is judithcane.com. I'm on Facebook, Canada's Money Coach, Judith Cane. On Instagram at
Canada's Money Coach.
On Instagram, okay. Yeah. Twitter. This
Money
social media
Coach
stuff.
Judy.
Oh my God, Money Coach Judy on Twitter. You know what? Social media is just there's so much to.
Don't worry, we got you clearly.
And then somebody said, well, are you on TikTok? What for? What is that?
Oh my God, I'm not even on.
Is that like Tinder? I don't understand. What is TikTok?
It's for dancing and singing.
Is it?
It's for the young kids. It's the young kids.
Is it? Okay.
I just wanted to say, Judith, I think it's refreshing that as a financial advisor, you highlighted that the CERB or CURB, whatever we're calling it, which is it?
CURB, because you don't want to call it CERB because that identifies a certain people.
I didn't even think of that. Okay, yeah. CURB. So everyone's like, oh, it's so great. The CURB's coming and the government's helping and it's wonderful. And thank God they are, but it's really not enough. And even for me as a single person with no kids, it's barely enough. So I couldn't even imagine families trying to live on that. So thank you for highlighting that and not being like, hey, you should be happy to receive that.
Yeah, you know what? But you have pets.
I do.
Right? Yes. So
spoiled ones too.
Hi. Look at you. Yes. So people with pets, that's another expense that people have. Before they were able to afford fancy foods and trips to the vet. And, now people are how am I going to afford to buy this food that, we have a cat that has diabetes, and instead of giving him diabetes shots every day, we have very expensive food, which means I don't have to give him the shots. So if we lost our source of income, could we afford the shots? What would we do for Bob the cat?
Yeah.
So it's people with pets. That's another thing is how do you have to put that in your budget as to what you think your food is. And I have to tell you, hardly anybody knows what it costs for their pet food. Hardly anybody, because they buy big bags of it or big tins, and it's usually every 6 weeks. So you have to do a little bit of work to figure out what it's actually costing you.
These
so
guys
take a look at take a look at your bank statements and your Visa statements to see what exactly you are spending, and maybe go a couple months back so you have a better idea when things were normal-ish of how much you're spending.
Yeah, so for pet food, that's a good example. So take 3 months and see how often you bought pet food, and then just divide it by 3. Add it all up and divide it by 3, because maybe you bought it twice over 3 months. So just divide that by monthly and say, I need to save this much money each month so that when the 6 weeks comes around, I've got the money to go buy the food. And that's the other thing I would say is use cash. Do not use your credit cards. Set up envelopes. Put the amount that you want to spend for groceries in the envelope. Once the cash is gone, and you have to use whatever's in your pantry or your freezer. And that stops you from spending more money than you had allocated. So use cash.
But wash your hands after you touch it.
Or debit. Yes, because now a lot of people aren't taking cash. But here's the thing. If you're not going to use cash and you're going to use the envelope system, then take the receipt and put it in the envelope so that you can track each week how much you've spent, and you make sure that you haven't spent more than you've allocated in your budget. And that'll prevent you from spending. Once you've spent the amount that you've allocated, oh, he can bark.
Now he doesn't want to.
Yes, so just use the envelope system and put the receipts in so that you can track how much you're spending.
Okay. Judith, you're always so wise, and always I just love the way that you take everything and put it into layman's terms for, people like Jesse and I.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've been through this rodeo a few times. I think this isn't my first rodeo. Is that what it is?
That's right.
Okay.
Your first rodeo on this program either.
No, I love being on this program. I'm so glad that you guys are still doing it, even though you're doing it thousands of miles apart. That is so cool. Yes.
It is cool.
Yes.
It keeps us busy and stops us from spending.
And thank you, John, for helping set this up.
Of course. Couldn't do it without producer John.
Yes. Shout out to John and all the work that he does and support radio online.
Yeah. It's a tough time.
It's a tough time for everyone.
Well, we hope that your family and friends and you take care, Judith. Thank you so much for
I'm self-isolating,
sitting down with
6 feet around. I'm self-isolating so that nobody don't touch me.
After every box of wine that I drink, I create like a perimeter around myself, and that will be like my way to keep people back.
Perfect.
Fortress.
My fortress of what? Hey, if I get evicted, then you know what? I will have enough boxes of wine to build a home. Rent free.
If you stuff it full of dirt or sand or straw or something, you could make like a straw house.
Oh yeah, and it would be good for lifting weights too, and make them nice and heavy.
Exactly.
It sounds like the beginning of the Three Little Pigs story. Judith Cane, Canada's money coach. She's so down to earth. If you need help, send her a message. She doesn't bite hard.
Thank you for your podcast. Keep up the great work, you guys, and stay safe.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.